Hi again guys, and so I've got a slightly different video for you today. This time it's just my personal thoughts on the forthcoming Hyundai and Bugatti Vision GT cars. Now they both look pretty awesome, they're both very clearly racing machines, and basically this video is just to throw out there a couple of theories that I have about these forthcoming new cars. Now whether or not I'm right, we'll have to see when they are released. In some ways I hope I am, in other ways I kind of hope I'm wrong. Now first of all, let's deal with what is arguably the more interesting of the two cars, certainly what looks to be the faster of the two at least, the Hyundai N2025 Vision GT car. Now as soon as you look at the design it's very clear what its purpose is. It is blatantly obvious that this is a Le Mans prototype of the future, the year 2025, I presume, based on the name. Now, there are a couple of notably different things about the design of the Hyundai, if it is indeed accurate to the pictures that we have, because if you recall in the past we have received pictures of VGT cars that haven't actually turned out to look like that, such as the original design sketches. Now these aren't sketches, so these are more likely to be accurate. They look more like actual pictures of the car, so we can be pretty accurate in hoping that these are going to be what the end resulting cars look like. Now, the first thing that strikes you about the design of the Hyundai, apart from that it's a Le Mans car, and that seems both odd and awesome at the same time, that Hyundai would make a Vision GT car into a Le Mans prototype. The next thing that strikes me, and many other people I believe, is that it does not have a rear wing. Now that's a very interesting point, and I actually do have a theory on that. Now rear wings of course are a staple of racing cars. They've been fitted to racing cars for decades. They were originally introduced in the 60s by Chaparral, and they've been used ever since. So, how can this car not have a rear wing? Because any of you guys who know anything really about aerodynamics will know that you can't just delete a rear wing and hope that there won't be any after effects or resulting effects to the car's aerodynamics and stability in general by doing so. Hyundai isn't stupid. They know that. They know that they can't just make a car that doesn't have any conventional downforce systems without it having an effect. So they wouldn't have done that if they didn't have a way of replacing that. Now, with current technology, what's the next best thing to a rear wing? A fan car. Now, obviously, I don't have any unarguable proof that this car will be a fan car, but I have two pieces of possible evidence which directs me towards the fact that I believe it could well be a fan car, like the Chaparral or Red Bulls. One piece of evidence is the fact that it doesn't have a rear wing, as we already mentioned, and apart from fan cars, there are very few completely effective ways of removing a rear wing. Now, the Delta wing doesn't have a rear wing, but it has completely different aerodynamics and a completely different aerodynamic signature to the Hyundai. Now, the car may well use a similar method to the Delta Wing and also the Nismo LM car, in that it uses the body itself to generate downforce rather than a conventional wing. But from what we've seen of the car so far, the body itself doesn't look that radically different. It's your typical LMP shape, just a bit more muscular. So I don't think that's it alone. I think there's got to be something else to this design. And the second thing that makes me think it could well be a fan car is the fact that Hyundai has been very, very particular in their choice of not showing us the full back end of the car. They've showed us the front, they've showed us the side, they've showed us the brake light even, as you can see here, but they've been very, very selective and very careful about not showing us the direct rear of the car. Now maybe that's just a coincidence, but the fact that it doesn't have any conventional downforce that we can see, and also that they are deliberately not showing us the back end, leads me to think that this may well be, I wouldn't necessarily say probably will be, but may well be a fan car. In which case it may well end up being one of the fastest cars in the game, considering that we currently only have 2 fan cars on the game, the Red Bulls, which I class as one vehicle because they're all variations of the same idea, and of course the Chaparral 2J. Now if this does turn out to be a fan car, which I hope it does because that will be awesome, it will doubtless be one of the quickest cars in the game, because in real life there have been 3 major fan cars that raced: the Chaparral 2J, which was the first in 1970, then the Brabham Formula 1 car, the BT46B, in 1976, and then the Red Bull. The thing that they share in common is that they completely dominated their respective categories. The Chaparral was banned after 1 season, the Brabham was banned after 1 race, and the Red Bull is by far the best track car in the game on Gran Turismo. Not even the Tomahawk can outrun it around the track, or off the line, funnily enough. So that's my main theory about the Hyundai. It's fairly obviously a Le Mans car, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a fan car. As far as tuning, well, obviously I hope that we can tune both of these cars, but I'm not too hopeful that we will be able to, based on the existing track record of VGTs. I think we probably won't be able to tune it. I really hope that they at least let us tweak the settings, but again, I'm not completely hopeful of that. In the case of the Hyundai though, either way, it will doubtless be a fast car. Now moving on to the Bugatti, which is a surprising piece of news when I heard a few weeks ago now that Bugatti was entering the VGT program, which is very cool, but kind of surprising to me. I would have thought that if they were planning to do it, they'd have planned from the start to do it, given Bugatti's reputation. But be that as it may, it's cool that they're doing it now, and from the look of the car, it's also a racing vehicle, very obviously, and kind of looks like a racing version of a Veyron. Now obviously it's not a Veyron, it's a little bit too different to be a Veyron. As far as I'm aware, we're not sure what it's going to be called yet. It may just be called the VGT, but I doubt that. I strongly think that they'll have a particular name for the car. But the image that it's going for is much more a GT class vehicle than the Hyundai, which is much more of a full-on prototype. Now that said, the Bugatti does have some styling cues that lend itself towards being more of a prototype, such as the highly complex rear wing support arrangement, and also the central fin, which is similar again to a prototype rather than a GT machine, which kind of makes me think that Bugatti's kind of going for a class within itself, a hybrid almost between a GT car and a prototype, a GTP if you will. Now as far as performance, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you can tell me in the comments below whether or not you agree with this, but I do not think that this Vision GT Bugatti is going to be as quick as the Veyron. I think around the track it will be. I think around the track it will be probably almost, if not beyond, the level of a current Le Mans prototype. So easily outrunning a Veyron around the track. But let's face it, it's not that hard to outrun a Veyron around most tracks. What I mean is that I don't think it's going to be as quick in a straight line. In fact, I would go so far as to say I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as fast as the Veyron in a straight line. Because if you look at the design of the car, the style, the Vision GT design ethos behind the car, the aerodynamic appendages that it uses, it's very similar to a vehicle that we already have on the game. The GT by Citroën race car. Very similar wing arrangement, also has a fin, and is also kind of a hybrid between prototype and GT car. And although that Citroën is a monster around the track, it doesn't have a very good top speed. It's around 250 with a low downforce setting, and I would go so far as to say, I hope I'm wrong, but I believe that the Bugatti VGT will probably be a 260 mile per hour machine at best. To be honest, I believe it will probably be more around the 240 to 250 region, which is kind of disappointing for those who are like myself, who like racing on Special Stage Route X more than anything else. But for racing fans pure and simple, it's a good proposition. It's going to be a genuinely competitive Bugatti. And the final interesting thing about the design of the VGT that I'm going to talk about is something in the interior. Now, ironically enough, it has a picture of the interior, although like all the other Vision GT cars, we probably won't end up having an interior. And on a small side note on that regard, interestingly, if you actually go into the Vision GT dealership and click on each individual car, if you look in the background of the menu, you can actually see the interior of that car. That disappoints me, because that means that Polyphony had an interior but just didn't bother to model it. But that's a side point. So looking at the interior of the Bugatti, first thing you notice is the stunning design which echoes the Bugatti logo shape that features on the outer door. But the thing that I want to point out is that central console. That is a track map, and that's a very specific track. That is Le Mans. And so if there was any doubt as to this Bugatti's purpose, it is quite clearly a Le Mans purposed vehicle. And the fact that the Le Mans is literally etched into the dashboard indicates to me that this is a pure Le Mans vehicle. It's not a world-travelling GT car, it is a Le Mans car. Possibly even from the look of the almost hybrid of designs between GT and prototype, I think that Bugatti is making this car as a class of its own. As I said earlier, more of a GT prototype, a unique class, maybe even something along the lines of a Garage 56 design, like the Delta Wing. So, those are my thoughts on the two cars. Overall, I think the Hyundai is going to be fast no matter what. I think the Bugatti is going to be slower than a Veyron in a straight line, but certainly quicker around the track. And whatever happens with them, they're both very cool looking cars, which will doubtless be fast. So, if you watch the whole video, you obviously have a lot of time on your hands, and that's it really. So those are my thoughts, and we'll wait until I come out to see which of those are true and which ones were rubbish. And tell me your thoughts below in the comments. What do you think is going to turn out with these VGT cars? And as always, thanks for watching.